It was still dark when she arrived at the tomb. She had come to anoint a dead man, the one she had followed across roads and villages, the one whose words had reordered everything she knew about herself and about the world. The stone was gone. The body was gone. And in that hollow silence, grief collapsed into something even more disorienting than death. The absence of even a corpse to mourn. Then a voice spoke her name. Not a title. Not a role. Her name, spoke in the way only someone who truly sees another person can speak it. She turned, and from the deepest place inside her, from somewhere beneath language and thought and all the structures grief had built around her heart, one word rose to her lips. That word was Rabbouni, and everything, absolutely everything changed in the moment she said it. The garden before recognition. To understand what Rabbouni means, you first have to understand the exact moment in which it was spoken. Not as a historical curiosity, as a living transmission. Mary Magdalene had witnessed the crucifixion. She had stood at the foot of the cross when most of the disciples had scattered into hiding, paralyzed by fear of the Roman authorities. She had watched the body of Jesus be taken down, wrapped, and carried to a tomb in a garden not far from Golgotha. On the third morning, before any light had fully established itself in the sky, she returned. The Gospel of John is specific about this detail. It was still dark. She came not out of hope, but out of devotion. She came to do what love does when it has nowhere left to go. She came to stay close. When she found the stone removed and the tomb empty, her first response was not wonder. It was a deepened form of grief. Someone had taken him. Even in death, they had taken him from her. She ran to tell Peter and the other disciple, who came, looked inside, and left. The text says they returned to their own homes. But Mary stayed. This detail is not incidental. In the Gnostic tradition, and in the earliest contemplative readings of this gospel, Mary's capacity to remain, to stay present in the absence, to weep without fleeing, is the very quality that makes her the first witness of the resurrection. The one who does not run from the void is the one who receives the vision. She bent over and looked again into the empty tomb, and this time she saw two figures in white, sitting at the head and foot of where the body had lain. They asked her why she was weeping. Said told Tem. Tense turned it, and saw a man standing in the garden whom she did not recognize. Through her tears, through the disorientation of grief, she assumed he was the groundskeeper. She asked him if he had moved the body. She offered to take it herself, and then the man spoke one word that dismantled all of it. Her grief, her confusion, her failure to recognize, her certainty that she was alone. He said her name. Mary? There is something in the structure of this moment that the contemplative tradition has spent 2,000 years trying to articulate. It is not simply a story of someone recognizing a person they thought was dead. It is a story about the specific conditions under which awakening becomes possible. Mary had walked through the garden, already looking at Jesus. She had spoken to him before he called her name. Her eyes were open. Her proximity was real. And yet she did not see him. The text does not explain this as a supernatural phenomenon. It presents it as something far more intimate and, therefore, far more universal. Grief is one name for what prevented her recognition, but in the deeper tradition, the Aramaic-speaking communities that preserved these teachings before they were translated and systematized understood this blindness as something more precise. They called it the condition of the soul that has not yet been called back to itself. The outer world remains visible, but the inner faculty that makes meaning of what the eyes see, that remains sealed, until something from outside the self reaches in and speaks the soul's own name. This is why the moment of recognition in this story is not triggered by Mary doing anything differently. It is not triggered by her trying harder to see. It is triggered entirely by being called, by having her name, her actual name, not her role, not her function, not her grief, spoken directly into her awareness. In the Aramaic tradition, the name is not a label. The name is the vibrational signature of the individual soul. To speak someone's true name with full recognition is, in the language of that tradition, an act of spiritual seeing, an acknowledgement that the essence of the other person has been perceived, not merely their surface. When Jesus spoke Mary's name in the garden, he was not identifying her for his own benefit. He knew exactly who she was. He was restoring her to herself. He was speaking her back into the clarity that grief had obscured. And in the precise moment that her name reached her, something collapsed inside her that had been holding the recognition back. Turn. The Greek word used in the original text is a full turning, a rotation of the entire body and, by implication, the entire orientation of the person. This was not a glance. This was a complete reorientation of where she was facing. And then she answered. After this video was first shared, hundreds ask the same question: where can they go deeper? We put together a complete guide with everything you need. The link is in the comments. What Rabbouni actually means. The word that left Mary Magdalene's lips in that moment is recorded in the Gospel of John, exactly as she spoke it. John preserved the Aramaic, which was unusual. He could have translated it directly into Greek, as he did with many other terms. Instead, he kept the original sound and added a parenthetical note for readers who might not understand, which means teacher. That translation is accurate, but it is, in the way that all translations are, incomplete. In Aramaic, rabbi means teacher in its most formal, institutional sense, the kind of teacher who holds a position, who has students enrolled, who operates within a recognized social structure. Rabbouni carries all of that meaning, but it adds something the formal word cannot hold. The suffix transforms the term from a title into an intimate address. It does not mean my teacher in the possessive sense of ownership. It means my teacher in the sense of the one who sees me, the one whose teaching is not directed at the crowd but at the specific truth of who I am. This is why the word appears so rarely in Scripture. It is not a word for public address. It is a word spoken in private recognition between a soul that has been called back to itself and the one who did the calling. In the earliest Aramaic Christian communities, Rabbouni was understood to contain within itself a double movement: the outer movement, recognition of the teacher who stands before you; the inner movement, recognition of the teaching that has always lived within you. This is the interpretive current that runs through the Nag Hammadi texts and through the Gospel of Mary, where the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene is precisely about this inner transmission, not doctrine delivered from outside, but perception awakened from within. When Mary says Rabbouni, she is not simply identifying who Jesus is. She is declaring that the recognition has happened, that the veil between blindness and seeing has dissolved, and that the one who made this possible is the one she is now addressing directly. If this transmission is moving something in you, there is a complete guide in the comments. The most important Aramaic words, their exact sounds, and the deeper protocols for those ready to go further. What happens immediately after the word Rabbouni is spoken is one of the most theologically charged moments in the entire Gospel of John, and one of the most consistently misread. Jesus tells Mary not to hold on to him. The Greek verb used here of haptomai in its present imperative form is better translated as stop clinging than as do not touch. She has already reached for him. The instruction is not to prevent contact. It is to release a form of contact that the moment no longer permits. In the contemplative tradition, this instruction carries a meaning that extends far beyond the physical gesture, the form in which she knew him, the embodied teacher, the voice in the village square, the man who ate and walked and explained things over shared meals. That form is passing. She cannot hold the resurrection into the shape of what came before it. The instruction is not a rejection. It is an initiation into a different relationship with the teaching itself. And then he gives her a commission. Go, he tells her, and tell my brothers what you have witnessed. This single instruction places Mary Magdalene in a position that the early church would struggle with for centuries. She is the first witness of the resurrection, and she is given explicit authority to announce it. The church father Hippolytus of Rome would later call her apostle to the apostles, a title that acknowledged what the gospel itself clearly states: the tradition that marginalized Mary Magdalene's role, that folded her identity into that of a repentant sinner based on a 6th century papal error by Gregory the Great, was precisely the tradition that severed the teaching from its living transmission. To restore Mary to her actual position in this story is not a feminist revision. It is a return to the text. It is a return to what actually happened in the garden. She went and told them. Her exact words in the original are, "I have seen the Lord." Not, I believe he has risen. Not, I think I saw something at the tomb. I have seen the Lord. The declaration is unqualified, direct, and given in the first person. She is reporting from direct experience. This is the voice of one who has passed through the moment of recognition and come out the other side, carrying what she received. The word Rabbouni was the hinge. Everything before it was the search. Everything after it was the transmission. The complete guide is pinned in the first comment, the most important Aramaic words, their exact pronunciation, and the full activation protocols. For those ready to go deeper, the link is there waiting. 2,000 years separate us from the garden, and yet the structure of what happened there is not a historical artifact. It is a map. Every person who has ever experienced a genuine moment of spiritual recognition will find, somewhere in this story, the precise shape of their own experience. The long period of searching that feels, from the inside, like wandering without direction. The grief of having lost something, a certainty, a framework, a way of understanding the world that no longer holds. The moment of remaining when everyone else has gone home. The inexplicable staying close to the void. And then, not as the result of trying harder, not as the reward for a correct sequence of beliefs, but as something that arrives from outside the effort entirely. A voice that speaks your name. Not the name others gave you. Not the name your history assigned you. The name that belongs to the deepest stratum of what you actually are. This is what the Gnostic tradition preserved when the institutional church was busy constructing doctrine. The teaching of Jesus was never primarily about belief. It was about perception, about the awakening of a specific faculty within the human being that, once activated, allows the individual to perceive truth not as information received from outside, but as recognition arising from within. Rabbouni is the word spoken at the moment that faculty activates. It is the sound the soul makes when it recognizes what it has always, beneath all the searching, been looking for. It is not addressed to an institution. It is not addressed to a doctrine. It is addressed, in the most intimate possible language, to the living presence of the teaching itself, which is also, in the deepest reading of this tradition, the living presence of what the soul already carries. The teacher calls, the soul turns. And in that turning, in that complete reorientation of where the person is facing everything, reorganizes, the grief does not disappear. But it is no longer the primary orientation. Recognition is, Mary did not become a different person in that garden. She became, for the first time in 3 days, fully herself again, and from that fullness she carried what she had received directly to those who needed it most. This is the transmission that Rabbouni holds, not a word to memorize, a threshold to cross. In the early darkness of a garden outside Jerusalem, Mary Magdalene arrived at an empty tomb, carrying nothing but grief and devotion. She stayed when others left. She wept in a silence that offered no comfort. And in that, staying in that willingness to remain present inside the void, she became available for the only thing that could reach her. A voice spoke her name. Her entire orientation shifted, and from somewhere beneath language and grief, and the accumulated weight of 3 days of loss, one word rose to meet what was calling her. Rabbouni, my teacher, the one who sees me, the one whose teaching lives not outside me but within the deepest place I carry. The Gospel preserves the Aramaic precisely because the sound itself is part of the meaning. Rabbouni is not a translation, it is a transmission. It carries inside its syllables the texture of a relationship that no formal title can contain, the relationship between the soul that has been called back to itself and the living teaching that the calling. What the Gnostic tradition understood, and what the earliest Aramaic-speaking communities held as the center of this story, is that the resurrection is not primarily an event that happened to Jesus. It is an event that happened inside Mary. Recognition is the resurrection of perception, the moment the soul turns and sees, truly sees, what has always been standing in the garden. Something in the individual rises that no amount of grief or confusion had been able to extinguish. She was then commissioned to carry it forward. An se dith, with 5 words spoken in the first person from the authority of direct experience. I have seen the Lord. The same transmission she received is encoded in the words she spoke. Rabbouni, speak it slowly. Let the sound move through you. Notice what, inside you, begins to turn. Everything in this video is the foundation. The complete guide is pinned in the first comment. The most important Aramaic words, their exact pronunciation, and the full activation protocols. For those ready to go deeper, the link is there waiting for you. And if this activated something in you, if you felt a shift while watching, you are ready for what comes next. In the next video, we enter the Aramaic activation codes for healing, the precise frequency sequence Jesus used to restore the body at the cellular level. The same technology, a deeper transmission. Do not miss Italiano. Right now, before you close this video, speak the word Rabbouni, then come to the comments and tell us, what did you feel? What shifted? We read every single response. And if this teaching found you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week, we go deeper into the ancient frequency codes that were always meant to be yours.
In the quiet garden at the break of dawn, Mary Magdalene walked alone. Her heart was heavy with sorrow, searching for the one she loved. The stone was moved, the silence was deep, and in that sacred morning light, her soul was about to awaken. Rabbouni, my master, my life. Rabbouni, the voice of truth. Rabbouni, the name of awakening. Rabbouni, the master within. She saw a man standing in the garden, but her eyes could not yet see. Grief covered the truth before her, like shadows before the dawn. Then a voice spoke, gently calling her name in the morning air. And suddenly her heart remembered what her eyes could not yet know. My master, my life. Rabbouni, the voice of truth. Rabbouni, the word of recognition. Rabbouni, the awakening soul. Not only in the garden long ago, but in every searching heart, the voice of the Master still whispers, waiting to be known. Rabbouni, my master, my life. Rabbouni, the truth revealed. Rabbouni, the voice of awakening. Rabbouni, at the break of dawn, Mary Magdalene walked alone. Her heart was heavy with sorrow, searching for the one she loved. The stone was moved, the silence was deep, and in that sacred morning light, her soul was about to awaken. Rabbouni, my master, my life. Rabbouni, the voice of truth. Rabbouni, the name of awakening. Rabbouni, the master within. She saw a man standing in the garden, but her eyes could not yet see. Grief covered the truth before her, like shadows before the dawn. Then a voice spoke, gently calling her name in the morning air. And suddenly her heart remembered what her eyes could not yet know. My master, my life. Rabbouni, the voice of truth. Rabbouni, the word of recognition. Rabbouni, the awakening soul. Not only in the garden long ago, but in every searching heart, the voice of the Master still whispers, waiting